Opening scene: snowstorm in remote Montana wilderness. The wind howled through the high canyons of the Bitterroot Mountains, slicing through the dense pine forest like a ghost on the hunt. Snow swirled in blinding sheets across the landscape, erasing all trails, all tracks, all hope. High in the mountains, Ranger Elena Brooks adjusted her wool-lined hood and trudged forward through waist-deep snow, her emergency patrol taking her further than she'd planned. A veteran with 12 years of wilderness search and rescue experience, Elena had seen her share of brutal storms. But this blizzard, this one was different. It was Montana's worst in nearly 30 years. And a family was still missing. Elena's gloved fingers tightened around the grip of her avalanche probe. Her breath fogged instantly in the air, the temperature hovering near minus 25 degrees Celsius. She paused for a moment, letting the silence settle, only broken by the occasional creak of snow-laden trees and the crackle of her two-way radio. Sector 9 reporting, no sign of the Taylor family. Moving south toward Larch Ridge. Over. Elena sighed and keyed in her own report. Sector 4 continuing sweep northeast of Pine Hollow. Still no visual. Visibility's low. I'll update in 30. Over. She trudged onward, driven by one thing, the knowledge that 6-year-old twins, Lily and Ben Taylor, were somewhere out here, lost with their parents after their SUV had gone off-road during the storm 2 nights ago. Elena crested a snowy bluff and paused. Below her, nestled between a stand of pine trees near a frozen stream, was a lumpy white formation. It looked like nothing, just another snow-covered boulder or drift, but something about the shape stopped her. That's odd. She raised her binoculars. The mound didn't match any of the usual snow formations she'd seen. Its outline was subtly curved, with a slope and ridge that looked almost biological. She squinted. Was that fur? Cautiously, she descended, her boots crunching through the frozen crust. The snow got deeper, heavier, past her knees now. 10 feet from the formation, she heard it. A sound. Faint. Shallow. Breathing. Elena froze. Her heart thudded. Hello? She called, urgency cracking her voice. Can you hear me? Are you injured? No answer. But the breathing continued, slow, labored. She dropped to her knees and began digging, fingers clawing through the dense snowpack. Seconds passed. Then a shape emerged. Not human, not what she expected. A muzzle. A thick black mane matted with frost. A white star marking above closed eyes. It was a horse, a Mustang, nearly buried alive in a snowbank. And still breathing. Holy, how are you even alive? She whispered, brushing snow from his nostrils to help him breathe. The stallion didn't respond, but a tremor rippled through his frostbitten frame. His ribs heaved with effort. His body was wedged in a shallow depression in the snow, as if he had lain down and never gotten up. The snow had formed a shell around him, insulating just enough to keep him barely alive. Her instincts screamed a call for help, but something made her pause. The horse wasn't alone. Next to his flank, pressed tightly against his side, were indentations, human-sized. Her eyes widened. Could someone have been sheltering with him? She rose quickly and scanned the immediate area. Then she saw it. 20 feet away, another slight depression in the snow, barely visible. A trace of red fabric peeking through. Her heart jumped. This is Ranger Brooks, Sector 4. Possible survivor located. Send medevac to Pine Hollow coordinates 45.178, minus 114.101. Repeat. Possible human contact. Move now. She dropped her probe and raced to the second site, digging furiously. Her hands hit something soft. Fabric. Then skin. Then a tiny, unmoving arm. A little girl. Frozen, but breathing. Sweetheart, It's okay, Elena said, her voice cracking. You're going to be okay. She gently cleared the child's face. Her skin was pale and lips blue, but she stirred a flicker of life. The girl murmured something, barely audible. The horse. He kept us warm. Elena turned, eyes wide with disbelief. The Mustang. He hadn't just survived the storm. He had saved her. The whomp 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 of the rescue chopper echoed through the valley as snow blasted into the air. Ranger Elena knelt beside the little girl, her gloved hand shielding the child's pale face from the wind. Within minutes, paramedics were on the ground, swiftly bundling the child in thermal blankets. Her name, Elena had learned, was Lily, the daughter of Mark and Sarah Taylor. Elena's voice cracked as she radioed in the update. We have one child, female, alive but hypothermic. Continuing search for additional victims. The horse remains critical, barely alive. As Lily was airlifted into the sky, Elena turned her attention back to the stallion. He hadn't moved, not even blinked. His breathing was slow but steady, and snow still clung to his lashes. You protected her, she whispered, crouching beside him. You laid there, half dead, to keep her warm. The Mustang didn't respond, but something flickered in his eyes. A tiny movement. Recognition, maybe. Gratitude. Or simply the last ounce of strength clinging to life. Elena reached for her satellite phone. Get a wildlife vet up here now. We've got a critical equine, possible frostbite, hypothermia, and shock. He's not just any horse. He's the reason that child is alive. Flashback 2 days earlier. Scene. Taylor family SUV lost in the storm. The Taylor's SUV had veered off the forest road late that evening, the visibility reduced to almost nothing. Snow piled fast around them. The engine had died. With no signal, no heat, and temperatures dropping fast, Mark and Sarah decided to leave the car and find shelter. They'd bundled up Lily and Ben as best they could, trudging through the night, blindly. That's when they saw him, the horse, standing in the trees. Still, quiet, watching, like he was waiting. Mark thought it was a hallucination, but the stallion turned and walked ahead, pausing now and then, as if leading them somewhere. And he did, to a shallow hollow, protected from the worst of the wind. There, the family huddled with him. The stallion allowed them to press close. He never flinched. His body, a wall of warmth between the children and the storm. Mark had left just before dawn to find help. He never returned. And Sarah, her trail vanished somewhere past the ridge. Scene. Present search continues. The next morning, the blizzard eased. Search teams expanded. Elena, now leading the rescue, guided them toward the coordinates where she believed the rest of the Taylor family might have gone. Volunteers scoured the slopes and valleys. Dogs barked. Radios crackled. Then, a call. We found someone. Female adult, unconscious but alive. Elena sprinted through the snow toward the voice. There, under a cluster of fallen branches, they found Sarah Taylor, her coat frozen stiff, hands raw and blistered, but alive. Another miracle. Sarah barely opened her eyes, but she whispered the same thing Lily had. The horse. He stayed with them. Scene. Makeshift field shelter, Mustang under care. Later that afternoon, a mobile veterinary unit arrived by snowmobile. The stallion had been slowly lifted from the snow using a rescue sling and transported under insulated wraps. He was barely conscious but alive. Dr. Hannah Clay, a local wildlife vet, shook her head in disbelief as she examined him. Mustangs don't usually let people near them. They're wild, proud, untouchable. But this one stayed still through a storm, buried himself to keep children alive? I've never seen anything like it. Elena nodded, still watching the stallion. He chose them. He protected them. That wasn't instinct. That was something else. Scene. Naming the miracle. Lily, now recovering in the local hospital, clutched a small stuffed horse in her hands. Her eyes lit up when Elena visited. "Is he okay? The horse?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elena smiled softly. "He's still fighting, just like you. Can I name him?" the girl asked. "Of course," Elena replied. "What do you want to call him?" Lily thought for a moment, then said, "Miracle, because that's what he is." The sun pierced through scattered clouds as a truck slowly pulled into the Montana Wildlife Rescue Facility. In the trailer behind it, the Mustang lay on a thick bed of hay, wrapped in thermal blankets, his breathing slow but steadier than before. His name, Miracle, had already spread through the region like wildfire. The story of a wild horse who gave warmth and life to a human child in the worst storm in decades had captured hearts far beyond Montana. Yet his recovery was far from certain. Dr. Hannah Clay stepped into the enclosure with gentle movements. The stallion still flinched at sudden sounds. His back legs had gone stiff from frostbite, and patches of his coat had shed from exposure. But he was alive. "You're a fighter, aren't you?" she murmured, running a gloved hand down his side. "I've seen Mustangs die from half this." Miracle didn't lift his head, but his eyes flickered open for just a moment. Deep, dark, and tired, but aware. Elena stood outside the stall, arms crossed tightly against the morning cold. "He's not just a wild horse anymore," she said softly. "He chose to lie down with that child and keep her warm. That kind of instinct, it doesn't come from nowhere." Dr. Clay nodded. "No, that comes from memory, from trauma, or from something lost." Scene. Hospital, A Child's Hope. In the pediatric room of the regional hospital, Lily's cheeks had begun to flush with color again. Her hands were warm, and her laughter had returned, though quiet and unsure. Her twin brother Ben had been found by another search team just hours after Sarah, cold and barely responsive. But both children were on the path to healing. All they wanted now was to see Miracle. "Can he come visit?" Lily asked Elena when she stopped by. "He's still very weak, sweetheart. But when he's better, I promise you'll see him again." Ben, sitting cross-legged beside her, looked up. "We were so cold, but he didn't move. Not even when the wind got really loud." Their voices held a reverence, the kind reserved for guardian angels, not animals. Elena felt the lump form in her throat. This horse had done something no human could. Scene. Vet office. A difficult truth. 2 days later, the results came back. "He's branded," Dr. Clay said grimly. "Branded?" Elena's brow furrowed. "So, he was once domesticated?" Dr. Clay turned her tablet around. "Freeze brand, lower shoulder, faint, but still visible. BLM tag from Nevada. That's a government-issued ID from over 12 years ago." "Wait," Elena said. "Nevada? That's hundreds of miles away. How'd he end up here?" Dr. Clay shook her head. "Only explanation? He escaped a holding facility or transport truck. Likely wandered through forests, avoided humans, and adapted to the wild again. That, or someone released him illegally." Elena stared at the photo. He lived among wild herds, but he remembered people. That's why he didn't run when the family needed him. "Exactly," Dr. Clay nodded. "He knew how to be wild, but he also knew how to care." Scene. Public backlash, a brewing controversy. By the end of the second week, Miracle's story had gone viral. News crews surrounded the wildlife center. Activists rallied online demanding he be released back into the wild. Others wanted him adopted by the Taylors. The Bureau of Land Management weighed in too. Technically, Miracle still belonged to the government. "We can't just let him go," Elena snapped during a heated meeting. He's injured. He wouldn't survive another winter. And we can't send him to auction, Dr. Clay added. Not after what he's done. A heavy silence filled the room. Then what do we do? Someone asked. Elena looked out the window, where snow was beginning to fall again. We ask him. Scene. Stable. A wordless bond. That evening, Elena entered Miracle's stall with something in her hand. A soft wool scarf that once belonged to Lily. The horse's ears perked as she approached. She knelt beside him. I don't know where you came from, or what you've seen, but I know you didn't survive that storm for nothing. She held out the scarf. He sniffed it, then lowered his head onto her lap. A weight lifted from Elena's chest. You want to stay with them, don't you? The Montana snows had finally begun to melt. Rivers swelled with icy runoff, and patches of green pierced through the white. The world, once frozen in silence, had started to breathe again. So had Miracle. In a quiet clearing outside the town of Hamilton, a small private paddock stood nestled between pine-covered hills. It was here that Miracle had been moved, away from crowds, away from debate. Here, he would begin the next chapter of his life, not as a wild Mustang, but as a member of a family. Seeing the Taylor's new beginning. The Taylor family stood by the paddock gate, wrapped in light jackets, watching as the horse stepped slowly through the grass for the first time since his rescue. Lily's face lit up. He's walking. He's really walking. Ben grinned and clapped, careful not to startle him. Sarah knelt beside them, tears in her eyes. We're really here, she whispered. We made it. Mark Taylor had not been found. His disappearance during the storm had sparked months of search efforts. In the end, only his scarf and flashlight were recovered near a frozen ravine. His body was never located, but his sacrifice had not been forgotten. Miracle, it seemed, had carried a part of him home. Seen. Elena watches from afar. Ranger Elena stood beside Dr. Hannah Clay on a nearby ridge, watching the reunion unfold below. It's strange, Elena murmured. For years I thought I knew the wilderness, trained in it, trusted it, but that horse, he changed something in me. Dr. Clay nodded. He reminded us that survival isn't just instinct. Sometimes it's love, memory, purpose. They stood in silence as Miracle walked toward Lily. The little girl held out a hand, and he touched his nose gently to her palm. No fear, no hesitation, only trust. Seen, a memorial among trees. A month later, the family held a small ceremony at the base of a pine grove. A wooden cross marked the spot. Carved into it were the words, "In loving memory of Mark Taylor, you led us through the storm. We found a miracle because of you." Beside it stood a stone marker, bearing the outline of a horse's head and one simple word, Miracle. Though the stallion lived, the moment he saved those children, the moment he chose to stay in the snow and not flee, had become more than survival. It had become legend. Seen, viral legacy. News outlets across the country shared his story. Animal rights groups called him a symbol of unity between man and nature. Children sent drawings. Letters poured in. Lily even wrote a short book with her mother's help, titled The Horse Who Stayed. It was published the following year and became a national bestseller, not for its writing, but for the truth behind its pages. Final scene, sunrise over the valley. One morning, as birds chirped and dew clung to fresh grass, Miracle stood at the top of a hill overlooking the valley. He had healed. His coat had returned, full and shining. His legs were strong again. Below, Lily and Ben played with sticks near a creek. Sarah watched from a blanket nearby, smiling. Elena, now a close family friend, walked up behind the horse and placed a gentle hand on his side. You could have left, she whispered, but you stayed. And now, you're home. Miracle turned his head slowly, And for just a moment, just a breath, his eyes met hers. Wild, free, and forever changed. Closing text on screen as music swells. In the heart of a blizzard, one wild horse gave everything. Not for survival, but for love. His name was Miracle.